On the 10-second delay.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yep.
Welcome everyone to Denison University's Red Frame Lab Online. This is the fourth broadcast in a series sponsored by Denison's ReMix Entrepreneurial Summit. My name is Rick Copeland, entrepreneurship coach at Denison University. I'll be making introductions for our guests and moderating their panel today. Today's session will be led by Heather Stouffer, Sims Jenkins, and last minute addition, even though we've been planning on this for quite a while, Randy. So 14 years ago, Heather Stouffer founded Mom Made Foods, organic foods for children. And Mom Made Foods launched at a local farmer's market, and now its products are distributed nationally in natural and mass market grocery food store chains. She is the perfect panelist today because her operations and plans for this year have been disrupted in ways that we probably couldn't have predicted very well. But Heather's adapting quite well from our discussion last night. But there's also a tremendous amount of disruption continuing on in her business. Sims Jenkins is founder and CEO of Brightwave, the leading email, ECRM, and cross-channel agency. He's led Brightwave in establishing a world-class client list, including the likes of Chick-fil-A, Ferrari North America, and Panera Bread, and more. Brightwave made the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing private companies for 5 consecutive years and was named the top email independent agency and the best of the best by the Relevancy Group. Brightwave was acquired in 2019 by Ansera, and they are a large technology and marketing service firm. Randy Walsh is founder and co-owner of Silver Creek Fitness and Physical Therapy in the San Francisco area. He was originally scheduled to join us and then couldn't join us and then could join us. So I am ecstatic that Randy Walsh has joined us today. He's going to have a really interesting conversation with us around having had his business closed down and reopened and what that has meant around the same kind of planning and contingencies that Heather and Sims have been dealing with. So Denison is leading during this time of upheaval and uncertainty. And we're serving our students and faculty and staff and alumni and broader communities through videos like this. How we react now is setting the conditions for our future opportunities and successes. We are intentionally asking, what does this make possible, rather than dwelling on how difficult this time is on so many fronts. So before we jump into our panelists, a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to hear from Sims and Heather and Randy in just a minute. Bear in mind that everybody's muted on the Zoom call. And for those that are on Zoom, you have the opportunity to ask questions via our chat feature or jump in with a hand raise that Melissa is going to help moderate through our time together. We're recording this and we're also simulcasting on YouTube, and we're going to make it available to everyone on Denison's YouTube channel over the next few weeks. We've had 3 other sessions, one on the CARES Act and payroll protection plans, one with co-founders of Rebel Coach who shared their thoughts on what crisis makes possible, and a conversation earlier this week led by 2 futurists, Dave Baldwin and David Staley, discussing foresight and the imagination economy. All of those videos are averaging well over 100 views, which speaks well of our Denison community. We will have a few other online conversations before the summer ends. Lastly, before we get started, Sims, Heather, and Randy will be providing their contact information at the end, although I doubt they're going to have time to do much other than run their businesses. So Sims, Heather, and Randy, welcome to ReMix ReImagine Online. And I'd like to ask each of you to provide a little bit more background than what I have already. And Heather, we're going to start with you.
Super. Thank you, Rick. And thank you for having me. It's an honor. And the ReMix community is and has been the last couple of years, but is still, especially today, just such a fantastic community. And they're the kind of folks who you can pick up the phone and call. And if you leave a message, you get a call back within 10 minutes and all kinds of objective feedback. And I just so value this community and that you're working to build it. A little bit more about Mom Made. I launched the company Memorial Day weekend. We will be 14 years old. And I launched it as a working mom who cares a lot about the food that I feed my kids. Couldn't find anything healthy and convenient when I was in a pinch for something quick. And so everything we make is frozen. It's geared towards kids' nutritional needs and kids' palates. But we have the philosophy that kids' food shouldn't be junk food, shouldn't be crap. It should be good, and that really any age can enjoy our foods. As Rick mentioned, we're sold in grocery stores nationally, some areas stronger than other areas. It's a big United States of America. So, but we are also available online. We launched our online store a year ago, and shipping frozen is, we were a little ahead of the curve when we launched the store, but now we're finding that that was really useful to have that year to get our feet wet with the online shipping, because we have seen a huge surge in orders online across our online store, Amazon, Kroger.com, but then also all of our retail has been surging as well. So it's a really interesting time in the food business, and lots of things going on, which I'll get more into. Rick, I think you're muted. There you go.
I just said, Sims, how about you?
Great, yes. So Sims Jenkins, I'm a class of 1996 from Denison, and I started Brightwave 17 years ago. And I didn't necessarily have a strategic vision like Heather. I was more kind of coming out of the ashes of 9/11, the dot-com bust, and the job market was terrible. And in fact, it's probably, that reminds me a little bit of the situation that we're in right now. So I started a company because I had no other options, not really because I had a great idea. And the macro environment sort of forced my hand to go out and hustle and figure something out. So I have no doubt that there's going to be situations like that. They're going to come out of this pandemic, which is one of the silver linings. But it's been a long, really interesting road over 17 years. We've stayed a very focused digital marketing firm where we really manage the email and customer communication programs for brands like Chick-fil-A and Cracker Barrel and Airbnb. So we're this hyper specialized firm, which I think has been really important. We haven't tried to be all things to all people, but we really, try to be the best in the world at what we do. So I think that's been kind of one of the foundations of our steady success and growth. We're about 100 people based in Atlanta. I sold the firm about a year ago to a private equity-backed large marketing and technology company. So I have kind of, the last 14 months have been very different than the first 17 years. And that's not a bad thing at all. So I'm kind of navigating the new kind of post-acquisition world. And, I certainly sleep a little bit better, selling the company 14 months ago versus right now. And our business, is very steady right now. We're doing a lot of, clients really view us as a critical business partner. I'm sure you guys are not getting less emails. So our business actually has a lot of demand for many of our clients. We're certainly feeling some impact for some of our clients that are retail based or have had their business severely impacted. But, what we do is really cost effective and, essential these days. So we haven't been severely impacted, at least, knock on wood.
Excellent. And Randy, how about you?
So my name is Randy Walsh. I'm the class of 1990 at Denny Do. I was an economics major there. So my entire life, I was kind of always an entrepreneur, I like to think. At Denison, I sold t-shirts and sweatshirts, sold t-shirts at concerts and things. We always had all kinds of things going on with some of my friends, fraternity brothers there in order to make money. So I always had that entrepreneurial spirit within me. Kind of took a turn. I went into sales and business after school, and then kind of took a turn and decided I played sports and was an athlete my entire life, and kind of had injuries off and on. Met a friend, got into the physical therapy rehab aspect, went back to graduate school and got a master's and doctorate in physical therapy. And while at school, and part of the reason I went into physical therapy is I always wanted to open and own my own clinics. So I met a friend at graduate school, and he had, after graduate school, had followed his now wife to California. I'm actually in San Jose, Silicon Valley. And so I'd gone back east, Baltimore, Maryland, where I grew up, was working there. And he kind of tricked me, palm trees and bikinis, to move out to California. So went out there and we decided to work because we always wanted to open our own clinics. So we started out with one clinic and grew that now to 6 clinics. I have about 75, 80 employees and are managing and running physical therapy clinics. So we're in healthcare, kind of a different world, always growing, always changing. So you always need to be prepared for things in this realm, but nothing like this can ever prepare you for what we're going through now. And being healthcare hands-on is what we really do. So it's hard to do our job without really touching people. But the world of telehealth, if you guys are aware, has absolutely been accelerated through this process. We'd always had looked into telehealth and wanted to do it and knew it was going to be a very big growth factor in healthcare world, physical therapy as well. So that has been extremely accelerated, and we've worked on doing that, and we're doing some of that. It's not the same, a lot of kinks to work out, but we are doing that. And we opened our clinics. We were considered essential healthcare here in the Bay Area, so we were allowed to be open, but we did close our doors for a while because of the cases were getting so bad. People were getting freaked out, and the fact that patients just didn't want to come. So like a restaurant, it doesn't make sense to have your doors open when nobody's coming in and you're just burning cash. So we decided to be conservative, save cash, closed our doors, looked out for our employees who were scared as well. Waited till it was a little clear. We've opened the doors and patients are coming back. We're starting to ramp up slowly. So we have a different perspective from the other 2 panel members, as we're completely different in healthcare. So.
Mm-hmm.
So what I find interesting is that each of the 3 of you have really different origin stories around why you started the business and how you got into what you're doing today. That said, each of you is in a position where you've got employees and you're trying to take care of the business and the employees. So I'm going to ask each of you, what are you doing right now to support your employees, and how does that change day to day? So Heather, I'm just going to kind of go back through the same order.
Okay. Well, we have a lean and mean team from a staffing perspective in terms of headcount. So, we feel blessed in that way, but it also makes it hard that we're just a handful of folks here, headcount wise. But our business, and I've learned through the years, there's different ways to build a food business, and you can build a facility, you can also build team, but in the frozen food business, it's a roller coaster. So I've learned through the years that the best model for us is to have staffing as variable based as possible. And so I feel blessed in this situation that we don't have more headcount, but yet there's just more balls for those of us who are managing the pieces. But we have a very robust team we work with a couple hundred sales brokers who are spread throughout the country. Those folks already work remotely, so they just haven't even missed a beat. And then our manufacturers are contracted, and there have been some hiccups there, which I'll talk to, but in terms of their employees, which are indirectly, but yet directly impact us. So we have had less impact from a staffing situation.
Okay.
Yeah, we went virtually, fully remote around March 10th or something, pretty early. So I think, I certainly saw that this was going to be a huge deal. And once, some of the, kind of the NBA stopped their season, there started just to be this really quick in mid-March where it was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be really bad. We were able to make the call really quickly. And I think, being pretty proactive as well as, strong communication, I think made our team feel really confident. But we've, Yeah, we've 90% of our folks are in Atlanta. The rest are throughout the country, but we have had where, you know, people have a lot of flexibility. We have a regular work from home Friday, every other Friday. So people were very, you know, from an infrastructure as well as a mindset, made the transition really easily. I think that helped certainly from a business impact, as well as just the idea of, you know, it wasn't a game changer when we said, you know, our office is closed as of March 11th, like, you know, you can't go in it. So I think, you know, people were ready to do that. I do know, you know, from talking to a lot of our folks, it really, you know, people with toddlers, that's where I hear it is incredibly challenging, where, you know, you might both spouses may be working and you have little kids that aren't in school. That's probably the biggest challenge area that I've heard from folks on our team that have just said it is brutal. I think everyone else has kind of gotten to a pretty good routine. They figured it out. You know, we're doing a lot of cultural things. So it's not just Zoom meetings to go over client work. We're trying to really kind of do some things that, you know, we would do typically in the office. And that's really helped. I've seen our culture really be kind of a bridge to the fact that we're not with each other, you know, in person. Culture has kind of kept some consistency to, you know, to all members of the team, and that's really helped. So, you know, I think certainly some people have said, get me back in that office as soon as possible. But I think for the most part, our team feels, you know, really comfortable and confident. And I think they've been appreciative of, you know, we've been, I think, overly communicative about every step of the way, because, you know, there's some businesses in Georgia, you know, that have already gone back to normal. So I think people are like, are we really going to go back, you know, May 15th or June 1st? Because I think a lot of people, you know, whether their personal situation or they're, you know, fearful from a medical standpoint. So we're just trying to really make sure we're, you know, telling people what our thinking is. And of course, you know, all of this is changing really fast, but the team's handled it incredibly well.
You know, from our standpoint, you know, our number one concern is, of course, was our employees. You know, your greatest asset in any your business is your employees, and then, of course, is your cash. So being that we really couldn't work from home like a lot of the tech companies here who have the easy opportunity of working from home, we really didn't. So we kind of did a survey with our employees, and being one of the higher counties and states in the area with the higher cases starting off, you know, everybody was kind of concerned, as we were. So we took a vote and everybody decided they wanted to shut down for a while. So we laid off everybody and took a hiatus. And at the time, you know, telehealth was still not where it needed to be. And of course, a lot of the insurance companies at the time weren't reimbursing for it. So it didn't really matter. So there was kind of the idea of, okay, trying to still keep the patients engaged, help the ones that needed, while at the same time taking care of people that, you know, a lot of the times were post-surgical and had just had their surgeries and needed to be seen. So that was an issue. So one of our clinics, a couple therapists decided to stay open, and we transitioned a lot of those patients to that area and took care of the really, you know, necessary and dire ones that had surgeries. And then they stopped all of the elective surgeries. So those people stopped coming in. So the important part was, you know, trying to develop the telehealth quickly. And luckily we were able to do that, as well as a lot of insurance companies came on board quick, and Medicare as well, in order to reimburse us for that. We were doing it anyway, hoping that we could retro and get reimbursed for that, as well as just trying to keep engaged with our patients while our employees stayed home and did the best that they could.
So I'm curious for each of you. You've each mentioned employees and the people that you work with outside of your organization to some extent. What is it about the things that you're doing as a leader right now? What's on your mind as you're thinking about, well, we may be reopening here even more in the next few weeks or not, and how are you going to adjust to that? And I'm thinking that in some cases there may not be a huge adjustment, in others there's room for some planned adjustment. Heather, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I guess reopening doesn't really apply to us, Rick, because we've had to maintain our food supply. And it's, you know, depending on which retailer we're talking about, some of them have grown 300% just in the last 60 days. So we are not closed. And, if anything, it's just working faster. And I guess the biggest challenges for us have just been in maintaining that supply and all kinds of unforeseen obstacles that, for example, we ran through packaging faster. So we had a purchase order in for new packaging, and we needed to increase it. We needed to double that order. And so that call to that printer was, I thought it was just going to be a quick call. Can you please double our order? And they said, well, actually, we're on back order because, you're talking about a food product, and we also do medicinal products, and those are top priority. So we actually can't. We were going to call you today anyway and tell you we don't know when we're going to be able to print your packaging. And so, and that's sort of every call you make. You don't know what that hurdle is going to be. But fortunately, I think with just quick decisions, and just, I think, sort of setting fear in the corner has been what's gotten us through this.
It's really interesting, Heather, that you mentioned that there are different parts of your supply chain that are affected differently. And you're still trying to be in business. Your business has grown in some respects and it's challenged in others. From your standpoint as leader of the company, how are you making those decisions more rapidly now than you might have 3 months ago? And is your comfort level down on, oh, this is a great decision, or how are you handling that?
3 months ago, I probably would have crunched more numbers for some of these decisions I'm making, just in order to make myself feel more confident about whatever, spend we were making. But there's just not time to do that right now with all the issues that are coming across my desk in any one day. So, in order to keep going, it's about speed of decisions. And, there are some of these that are, we've had to increase our production capacity substantially the last 60 days. And that the flow of that with how it impacts cash, and there's a lot of uncertainties there. But at some point, being 14 years into this, you have to just know that the obstacle is the way. That's a great book if people haven't read it. But the obstacle, just know that you're going to get through it, and make that decision, and then carry forward. And it is going to work out. It might not work out that day or the next day, but it will ultimately work out. And I've had multiple issues that have been really scary to make the decision on the last few weeks, and then they work out.
I love that approach. It's kind of a white-knuckled approach, but it's working.
Yeah, it's a scary time.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And that's why I like the diversity of the three of you, is that you've got very different businesses and very different concerns and advantages and disadvantages, and so that's just how business is right now.
Mm-hmm.
So how about you?
I think probably a lot of expectations from a growth standpoint we've had to readjust. This was a year where we were expecting 40 to 50% growth. I'll be really happy 10 to 20% given this pandemic, which is still pretty solid. But we've been a really high growth company the last couple of years. So this, I think the biggest thing that I've seen is people's decision making, particularly March and April, starting to see kind of people have the light at the end of the tunnel. But there's very few people that are making big new commitments for any business these days, unless it's PPE or something that's sort of critical to the pandemic. So that's where this is probably usually the most important time of our business. We put on a big conference in April where over 500 people come, where it's just a sales and marketing platform that's significant. We had to postpone, first we postponed it to September. And then a couple of weeks ago, we said, people are not going to travel for non-essential business anytime soon. So we postponed it to April, but we're even, April of next year. And we're thinking, I think there's going to be massive changes on how people make decisions for business. You might go, if you've got $1 million deal that you need to go sit across the table and, shake hands with somebody and really convince them. But are you going to go to a conference sitting in a room with hundreds of other people for something that you might be able to do virtually? So there's just a lot of like big things that are subtly going to change the way we do business in the next couple of years, and the acceleration of it of the growth will have to be kind of spurred by some other things versus the way that it's happened the last 5 or 10 years. So we're just trying to be really creative. We're putting it from a marketing standpoint, we're putting out a ton of content, and hope that it drives some demand and new conversations and things like that. So it's, and we'll see Q3, Q4, will people be back to the old mindset? It probably will depend on, does this, virus really come back and spike? So there's just so many variables, and they're all kind of the sum of all parts is probably the impact to our growth is kind of what we're waiting to see.
I mean, for us, it's just adjusting to what's going to be the new normal. Aside from the fact of, we're not on the front lines, we're not treating people who have or are diagnosed with COVID, but we're certainly working closely with people and, adjusting to the fact that everybody who comes in, everybody wears masks, including all the therapists. We all wear gloves. The amount of cleaning and disinfecting that needs to be done has changed it, as well as for us trying to figure out in terms of patient load and numbers, right? I mean, most of your businesses run on 10, 15% margins, unless you're in the software, which runs on much higher margins than that. But for us, it's about of seeing a certain amount of patients we're used to every week, per the size of our clinic. And if you are told that you need to social distance and now you can only get in 50%, half of what you normally have, that doesn't make sense. Those margins just aren't there. So we're trying to figure out where that's going to end up. Even if this thing does dissipate, it's obviously not going to go away. But trying to figure out the volume and the numbers that we can see at this point, based on, we used to see patients every certain amount of time, hour, half hour. Now we can only see one patient every hour, and we have to cut down the number of therapists. So our volume drops significantly, and you just can't get in those margins, and the profitability drops, and you got to get to the point of, does it make sense to even stay in business, or do you need to close clinics? Kind of similar of what a restaurant's going to do. I mean, you just can't work on 50% margins, 50% capacity anymore. So that's going to be the hardest part, adjusting to that new normal and figure out where the numbers are, as well as a couple of our clinics, our gyms as well. They're small private gyms where we take about 200-300 members, and those have been completely shut down, no revenue at all coming in there. And, our governor here has talked about, okay, you can run on 50% capacity. You got to sign up, let a few people in, then close for 20 minutes, clean it, then sign up again for another. And those kind of numbers just don't work in any business. So it's great that they say you can open up and let people come in, but when they tell you that you're restricted to these sort of numbers, it makes it that much more difficult to remain profitable.
Yeah, that's I think that's a challenge for anyone is to, as you said, deal with the new normal, because the new normal is going to be in flux every day for the next few months. And so I'm curious for each of you, you've been in business for a long time. You've dealt with changes, recessions, all sorts of things have happened along the way. But what is it about being an entrepreneur that has prepared you well for this time? Because what I'm hearing from each of you is kind of the background of, this is hard, but yeah, we're doing this. And so I'm just curious what it is about your experience up to this point that's made it possible for you to look at all the various problems and go, we can handle this.
Yeah, I think for us, it's never been our growth has not been, I guess, for video or for the camera, it just hasn't been smooth and steady. It's more like it's just, loop-de-loop, and you don't know when that loop-de-loop is coming, that there's just so many unexpected hurdles that we've already had to overcome in order to still be alive and thriving today has meant we've already overcome, hundreds of major issues. And so, I say I've got alligator skin, that, there's really nothing that I feel at this point can throw me off kilter. And, but, as I said earlier, it's just making those decisions faster, more confidently, and figuring out how to break away from work in order to have self-care and so that I can make those decisions and have the focus that I need to.
Yeah, I think, similar to what Heather had said, I think at the beginning of there's failure is not an option. I think most entrepreneurs, at least if you've been doing it for 5-10 years, you're already the outlier that your business, has survived. So I think the attitude of, yes, this is scary, there's tons of uncertainty, but failure is not, an option. And I think anyone that's been an entrepreneur for a while has probably pivoted or changed dramatically in a lot of different ways, personally as well as the business. So I think, having that flexibility of, no one saw this coming. This isn't what I thought 2020 would be, but, we're going to make the most of it. And I think, most entrepreneurs are really good at taking a left turn when they thought they'd be, taking a right turn. So I think that mindset's really important, as well as just the attitude of persistence, and, success will come even if it's, the map that you drew has changed dramatically.
Yeah, I mean, just being the base or the core of an entrepreneur is being able to face challenges, reinvent yourself constantly, adjust with change. I mean, it just comes with the territory, and that's part of the personality disposition of a true entrepreneur, that no matter what's thrown at you, you're able to deal with it and overcome it. Myself, usually a lot of entrepreneurs start out as small business owners, and you face all of those challenges every day, and you do whatever it takes to make it happen. And it's just kind of at the core of our personalities, and you'll just do whatever it takes. And the fact that sleep is overrated, and you can sleep when you die, so who needs that, man?
So each of you has kind of given the very classic response of, I can handle this. I've been through this before. Things are happening. How do you translate that for your employees who may or may not have that entrepreneurial bent to them? And this is a time of disruption. And not only do you have to run a business right now, but you've also got to lead your employees in a way that they don't think that you're absolutely crazy.
Yeah, Sims and Randy, why don't you guys speak to that one? We already work virtually, so it really hasn't changed things much at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with us, I guess it's constant communication is the big thing, right? And to not show weakness, and to be positive. So, everybody's at home and everything. So we have Zoom call meetings at least once a week, and send out daily emails, and just letting them know where we are and the status. Talked about getting the PPP loan, and try and keep everybody positive, and let them know that we're in this for the long haul. We've been around forever. We don't plan on going anywhere. So you just kind of keep that constant communication, and let them know where you are and where you stand, and be realistic, and share in your vision of the future and what it's going to take to run the company, as well as kind of be realistic about some of the numbers, some of the simple stuff that goes on with the P&L and the balance sheet, and how you got to adjust with in my world, patient visits and getting people in the new telehealth. And we all need to make a few adjustments if we're all in this together, in order to be in the long haul. And just by keeping those open lines of communication to everybody, it really makes a big difference, and they appreciate it. And we try and do those a Zoom happy hour on Fridays, just to keep morale up and those sort of things. And now that our doors are open, that helps a lot, and we share a lot of the numbers and visits, and keep people in the loop.
Yeah, I agree. Communication is certainly the number one thing, and I think having a lot of kind of personal conversations too. I mean, I try to certainly before I, might have a weekly team meeting or one-on-one is trying to get a sense of like, how are you doing this week? This is week 9. So I think, connecting with people on a personal level, as well as showing some empathy for the overall situation, I think is really important. We've like, I think, Randy, you said we do an email. I send an email every Friday that has updates on a lot of the really important work feedback we're getting from our clients, because we don't really have that sort of physical presence to be able to, give each other high fives. And we do a lot of celebrating the work and the people. So I'm trying to really showcase that in a weekly email. That's been a really good morale booster, as well as, making it front and center that like, if our clients aren't happy, then, the business is going to struggle. So I want people to see that we are doing, really important things for our clients. They appreciate it. And I also, right when this started, I gave, most of our employees, have been with the company for a few years. I let them know also that, hey, this is incredibly uncertain and we don't know what's going to happen or how long this will last. But, I've been through, the Great Recession. I started this business in a similar situation. So there hopefully is a little bit of, confidence from a leadership team. And some of my team has also had similar circumstances where we've been through some pretty tough moments. And I think that that's important. People need to see like, hey, is the leadership team freaking out? Do they know what they're doing, or do they seem like, they've got a steady hand on the situation? So, but communication, I think I've certainly heard for companies that are doing it well or not doing it well is, kind of the do or die thing. Like there's nothing worse than radio silence when you're working from home for, 3 months and you don't know, is this business doing well? Is it going to go out of business? Am I going to lose my job? People just need kind of the constant updates on the game plan and how the business is performing. Because you're right, Rick, like not everyone thinks the way that, Randy and Heather and I do.
Right. And, it's challenging to balance those concerns with what you understand and what your history is. And it's just good leadership. I love hearing both of your explanations. And Heather, I know you're doing this with your employees too, but just how much more you're communicating. And it seems like this is an opportunity during this time to draw teams closer together for having experienced something like this, that in the future, you're going to be stronger for this.
Yeah, I think building on Sim's point too, that those one-on-one conversations, whether it's with a team member or a client or a partner, I've found that you can just really get much deeper in conversation, relationship-wise, than we've ever been able to. That people are really opening up. There's just that innate connection of everybody's situation and curiosity with, Randy, how's it out on the West Coast? And here's how it's going in the East Coast. And so just, that openness and sharing, it's an opportunity really to forge those relationships and make them stronger.
Yeah, I would agree with you. This is a time of opportunity as much as it is a time of disruption. And we, as entrepreneurs, we're in a position to go, yeah, we've got this. And we're simply asking this question over and over, which I mentioned at the beginning and will again at the end. What does this make possible? So here's a question that I'd like to ask each of you. What has been a really positive surprise that you have seen in your teams, either in the way that somebody has stepped up or things that happen that you might not normally expect, but it gives you a level of comfort that, yeah, we are moving forward together?
Yeah, I think certainly you don't really know how a team's going to perform in a situation like this. And it's been, really, I've heard so many, I've seen it firsthand, but I've certainly heard a lot of stories from our clients and from other kind of senior leaders on our team on, people are still working weekends, nights, doing whatever they need to for clients. And certainly we don't want anyone to be burnt out, but at the end of the day, our business, we have to be able to really achieve, important results for our clients, or, it defeats the whole purpose of our business. So I've seen teams rally behind, where it's pretty easy right now to just be like, it's 5 o'clock, I'm going to check out, I'm done for the day. And I certainly encourage people, they need to do that, to have that life work balance. But it's been just awesome that, there's no barriers in terms of seeing collaboration, and people go to bat to do the right thing for clients, and clients have shared with me on just how unbelievable our team has been as humans as well as a critical business partner. And it's just been rewarding, not necessarily surprising, but rewarding and validating.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, for us, so a lot of employees have definitely stepped up and stayed with us, and help invent and bring some of the protocols that we have to use in this new world. A lot of things in terms of the cleaning and the PPE, and everybody's had their input and shared in developing all those new protocols that it's a lot of extra work, as well as being able to stay in communication with our customers who are our patients, right? And even though they aren't able to come in, to at least take their time to get on the telehealth, and knowing in the beginning it was the wild, wild west, saying, hey, look, we might not get paid for this. And if we don't get paid, it's going to be real hard for us to pay you. But still taking the initiative and saying, hey, what's important is our patients, and taking care of them, and putting them first, and making sure everyone, all those people stay happy. And people have gone above and beyond in most cases to help us out and understand the process. And with returning to work, they've been willing to, slowly ramp up, right? We've been trying to work. We did receive some of the funding with the PPP loan, and a lot of strings attached, and trying to figure how to use that correctly in terms of being able to work with that. So still trying to be conservative here at the beginning. They've been willing to come back and ramp up slowly, as opposed to saying, hey, I want my full salary, I need everything now, give it to me, give it to me. We've been able to just work all together, and hopefully they've been looking at the long road, knowing that we're going to be around, and we're going to take care of them, and they take care of us. So it's been great to see that aspect.
Yeah, building on that, Randy, I think that taking care of them and taking care of us, we've seen that too. I think the biggest thing we've seen is just, regardless of whether or not you're in healthcare or consulting or the food business, in our case, in the food business, every single one of us is facing obstacles with any piece of our business that we're trying to deliver. And at the end of the day, just a thank you goes a long way, genuine gratitude, and just realistic with your expectations. I think, whether it's our fulfillment house has had a dry ice shortage, week after week, they've had packaging shortages that's pushed all the orders out. That, then has implications back towards us with our customers and customer care. And, the whole spectrum of any product or any piece that we're working on, I'm just finding that overall, if you say, thank you for your understanding, here's what the issue is, and whether it's them telling us or us passing on that information, everybody's really understanding right now, and just passing on that overall, just, having that attitude of gratitude is going a long way.
That's a great point. I think that one of the things that this time has made possible is that I actually think it's introduced a greater degree of humanness into our business. We've acclimated ourselves to seeing kids jumping in the background on Zoom calls, and bad sound and things not going great, and having to adjust on the fly. And Randy, you're a great example of that today. You weren't sure if you could join us, and then you could. And I was delighted when you texted me a few minutes before we started up and said, I'm in. And so those kinds of things, I think, are making a lot of things possible for us. So before we open up to questions from our Zoom audience, I want to ask you guys for just a moment, if you could think about at the end of the week or sometime during the week when you are alone, and you're throwing back the margarita or the beer or whatever, and you're just alone, what's your biggest need right now, and what's on your mind? And this gets back to the question you mentioned, Heather, very briefly about self-care.
One thing that's a good question. A lot of entrepreneurs don't really think in that way, even though it's really healthy. I think we're all looking for a little more clarity or maybe leadership from every state is doing something different. Georgia, where I live, is the laughing stock where we were opening up tattoo parlors and bowling alleys, and right as cases were spiking. I think we're all going to be trying to figure out, whether it's with companies or health organizations or states, is trying to I don't think there has to be consistency of what businesses do, but I do think it'd be great to be able to get some more leadership of, here's how a business should open. Here's what's appropriate in terms of, offering your employees the chance to opt in or opt out of returning, and what is the proper way that buildings should take care of their workspaces for their tenants. I think because right now everyone is still kind of waiting to see what happens next. It's an opportunity to do some different groups to take leadership, or I think we're all looking for some kind of clarity. I had a friend that started a group called Georgia Alive, which I'm now involved with, because I think we were frustrated with how the state really wasn't maybe making good decisions or communicating enough. So this group of 40 business leaders said, we're going to try to put together some best practices. We're going to try to connect people that are looking for PPE. We're going to try to be that voice that's lacking. But I know that at the end of the day, when I'm thinking about are we making all the right decisions, having some more strong leadership in different areas would maybe help, or at least so you're not feeling about making decisions in the dark.
Well said.
I think for me, it's such an ever-changing issue every single day. So I don't even necessarily look to anyone outside anymore, because people really have no clue what they're doing and what's going on, in terms of, because it's so unknown at this point. One day coffee's good for you, one day coffee's bad for you. People are just always trying to make these decisions on the fly. And so I guess what I look in, towards the end of the day or the week, the most important factor that I look at is just trying to stay healthy myself, and be thankful that I need to stay on top of it all for my family and for my business. So I just look at the end of the day that I'm doing everything I can to stay 100% healthy and be able to keep pushing through this and moving on no matter what. Alcohol helps too, but healthy is
Yeah, good stiff margarita, Randy.
it's bourbon.
Yeah, I would say the same thing, that, I think it's easy to feel lonely because we're all working remotely, and particularly as a leader in making so many decisions, it's that time that you don't have to even pick up the phone and commiserate or get somebody else's feedback on some decision that you're making. It's so few and far between right now. Just getting through the day is in and of itself enough. But I think, that Friday evening margarita, I'm just thinking, whew, made it another week. And keeping the priorities in check, that, am I doing what I need to do to keep my head straight and my body healthy? And I certainly have those things, in my toolbox, whether it's, the church and yoga and time with my kids and time with my husband. And, I'm not getting all of those right now. We're laughing. It's like date night. I dream of a date night right now, but how do we make that happen? So I think those are the areas where, if those pieces for me are going well, then the business is fine.
So we have just a few moments left. We're going to wrap up in about 12 minutes. And I don't know if we have any questions. I haven't seen anything on chat, but I'm also not looking at chat. So I would love to open this up to our online guests with Zoom, and hopefully they'll have a question. But if they don't, of course, I've got other questions.
We do have one question that came in for everyone. And that is, who do you like to look towards for your inspiration or for entrepreneurial leadership and guidance?
That's a great question. I'll tell you, one of the things that I've enjoyed throughout the last couple months, and my kids have made fun of me of being like the most boring dad ever, is I've been reading a lot, and I've recently finished a biography. You know, it's like a 1,600-page book. It's definitely the longest book I've ever read. It was on Churchill, and you know, the way Churchill handled World War II was just remarkable. Where, you know, much like this, there wasn't a script. It seemed like every day was going to get worse. But you know, he had just some real poise and, you know, confidence in a time where people were clearly looking for him or looking for anyone. And so I certainly try to take some cues for, you know, even if you're freaking out inside, that your team, your customers, your partners need to see that, you know, you've got a firm hand on things. And, you know, really character is often, you know, shines through in a crisis. So that for me was a great timed read, even though I started it before all this happened and ended up having a lot of takeaways that are, you know, more relevant than I expected.
I think for me, I read a lot, but where I get the most inspiration is out of talking to other entrepreneurs and making sure that I am carving out time to, whether I'm on a walk or even a run, and just deal with my huffing and puffing, but find that time to reach out to friends who are entrepreneurs. And I get off those calls more inspired than I do at any other point in the day. And that time doesn't really exist. So it's important to just, you know, even if it's like you're texting and then do you have 5 minutes to talk, making those calls has really gotten me a long way the last few months.
Yeah, in terms of building on that, I mean, we have a group of therapists, owner therapists in this area, who we all get together on calls, even though we're kind of competition, but we're not competition. And we share a lot of ideas and bounce a lot of things off each other's heads throughout the year normally, but we've been doing a tremendous amount now, kind of with the thought of we're all in this together, especially with trying to get the telehealth going in that aspect. So that's been a huge inspiration to me. But if I had to look towards somebody who is a more famous and larger entrepreneur for myself, would be Steve Jobs, is someone I've always kind of followed in terms of being here in the Silicon Valley and being an Apple fan. I like to think that my disposition is a lot different than his from a personality standpoint, but again, his mind is a lot greater than mine. But a lot of his ability to continually change and adapt and never give up when he's down has always been something I followed. As well as in the end, you know, it doesn't matter how much money you have or everything you've built and done. If you don't have your health in the end, it really doesn't matter. So it's the most important factor. Your health and your family gives you everything.
We had a question come in.
Questions, or
yep, there's a question that came in for Randy. And this is, what is your perspective about telehealth, and how will this best be made available to support college students and new college graduates?
Yeah, I mean, telehealth is the future. You know, I've always known it was the future. There's a great company called Teladoc that I followed for many years and had invested in. And of course, it's been thrusted to the forefront because of the situation. And a lot of apps out there, and it'll just be specifically for care with primary caregivers and internists, things like that. It'll be, you know, the future where people just will be able to go on and do a quick visit and get diagnosed with certain things, as well as coming up with, you know, some of the supercomputing where you'll put in your diagnosis almost without the use of a doctor, and it'll be able to come up. You'll put in your symptoms, it'll be able to come up with a diagnosis quicker than a doctor would, based on a whole realm of parameters. But in terms of college students, yeah, I mean, it'll be huge for college students because it'll make healthcare more affordable. It'll give a lot more options to students, and it'll make it easier where you don't have to actually go to a physical visit itself. It'll be much easier to log on and just sign in and get it done, where you won't have to take the time out of your busy studies and activities to just have that diagnosis done for you. So it's going to be the future of everything for sure. And I'm excited to watch it. And this has really helped it grow significantly. And I think we'll give it the respect that it deserves, that you can do a lot on a telehealth visit, as well as just educate. Just simple education can make a significant difference in what people are facing.
Good. I think we have time for one other question. Is that it, Melissa, or does anybody else have questions?
Oh, sorry, there is one more. This is to Heather. How have the more recent threats to the food supply impacted upon mothers purchasing your food products? And how do your food products connect in with healthy organic methods?
Well, we've seen a huge uptick in online orders. They were trickling in for the last year until mid-March, and then they started coming in hourly. And so I think the comfort level of buying food online and frozen being at the lag end of that, I mean, I don't see that as decreasing. I see that as only continuing to build. Our messaging has totally changed from, I didn't mention this, but we launched a new product line that we were working on for 2.5 years. The first run was done the 3rd week in March, right as everything was closing down. And it's a line of frozen healthy sandwiches. And all of our marketing was written saying, you know, pull this out of the freezer in the morning and then put it in your child's school lunch. It'll be thawed by the time they sit down in the cafeteria. And everything had to change because it's a homeschool lunch solution. I think, you know, our consumer is just tired of making meals, tired of making 3 meals a day, 7 days a week for their families. And healthy shortcuts are so appreciated. So, you know, between differences and how the consumer is purchasing, but then our consumer doesn't cut corners when it comes to nutrition. So we've seen as I said, you know, whether it's in retail or online, the orders have been significantly larger, and hopefully they continue to do so. But it's really that consumer connection with, we get it. This is such a hard time, and we are all so tired of making food from scratch. You're either baking your own bread or you're looking for a shortcut that doesn't involve leaving your house. And there's like 2 extremes of cooking going on, and we're the solution. And that seems to be working. It's just rewriting everything marketing wise that's really challenging.
Unending challenges right now, but that's true of every day for the life of an entrepreneur. Just a little bit more in flux right now. So Heather and Sims and Randy, thank you so much for joining us today. I think the things that you're talking about and the positive attitude that you have, it makes sense out of being an entrepreneur at this time, because we're not in the same boat. We're probably in the same storm, and this has affected us in different ways. But I love the way that each of you has talked about how you're handling things and how you're looking not only to support your employees, but also how you're looking to make sure the business runs and meets the needs of your customers. And it's a balancing act. And I love hearing what you guys have said all about this. I do want to say thank you also to our attendees and the questions that you were able to ask. Appreciate that very much. Melissa, as always, does a fantastic job handling the questions. I do want to ask everybody to stay tuned for additional details. We think that we're going to do some more of these. We've got interesting things coming up with our Red Frame Lab for internships with students this summer that we're totally excited about, but it's taking a tremendous amount of time to pull off well for the students and the people that they're going to be interning with. So please watch your inbox for any messages regarding a replay of this or future ones. And I wanted to say again, thank you for joining us. I'm Rick Copeland. I'm entrepreneur coach at Denison University's Red Frame Lab, where we get to explore design thinking, innovation, and entrepreneurship with Denison students, faculty, and staff, and a lot of times the entrepreneurs that we're so well connected to, like these 3. I do want to leave one parting thought as usual for everybody. Take today, look back on this week, look forward to next week, and simply ask, What does this make possible when you're facing a challenge? And turn that into something positive, much like our three guests have today. Again, thank you for